The letter motivation most people think is strong is actually the reason they get rejected from Erasmus Mundus. I want you to maximize your chances of getting the scholarship, and by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what not to do and why. Hey, I'm Miranda. I've been applying for scholarships and grants for over 10 years. My total is now over $200,000, and this is my series on Erasmus Mundus where I am guiding you from start to finish to create a strong application. What you need to know in this video is super important for getting the scholarship because I'm seeing this theme come up over and over again. Let's take an example. Imagine I'm applying for the Euro Pub Health program. A letter motivation is required and it can't exceed over 600 words. Sometimes it's a person's first time writing the letter motivation and they feel lost, they need inspiration. That's fine and that makes sense. So what do they do and what do they know? Well, themselves. As humans, we love talking about ourselves, the things we've been through, what makes us unique, etc. So the LOM may start something like this. I still remember the day my mother sat in a crowded clinic for hours, the air heavy with impatience and quiet desperation, only to be turned away without receiving care because we could not afford the treatment. At 6 years old, I remember the silence on the way home, how something as basic as healthcare suddenly felt out of reach. Growing up in a low-income community, experiences like this were not rare. I witnessed firsthand how inequality in healthcare access can alter the trajectory of entire families, limiting not only physical well-being but also hope for the future. This moment did not just stay with me, it compelled me to pursue public health, driven by determination to contribute to systems where no one is denied care because of where they come from or what they can afford, like my family. Pretty great, right? This might be an unpopular opinion, but no, it isn't a good intro. Let me give 5 reasons why an introduction like this could cost you a fully funded scholarship. First, I want to stress that I am not invalidating someone's lived experience. I'm in no way saying that these are not painful or impactful things that have happened to you or someone that you know. I'm merely coming from this from the lens of the reader and the selection committee member. And that is who you need to have in mind as you go through any application process. I know the term sob story is used. Personally, I don't love it, but for the purpose of this video, it's what I'm going to use to prove my point. It's common for applicants to open their LOM with a heartfelt experience or a sob story. Maybe an applicant experienced a loved one being ill, an applicant broke a bone and they had to be away from school for some time, an applicant's house was flooded and they had to relocate to a new town or city and make new friends. These challenges are absolutely difficult and real. At the same time, which brings me to point number one, you should know that many applicants are opening their letters of motivation in this style, in this way. A selection committee member is reading tens or even hundreds of letters, and they're going to read very similar openings on childhood adversity. At some point, the impact does not land and stories start to blur together. Have people opened with heartfelt stories and circumstances and won fully funded scholarships? Yes, absolutely. Will people continue to use them in the future and win scholarships? Yes, of course. I'm not saying that you must not do this because the rejection rate is 100%. No, not at all. What I want for you to understand is how a selection committee might interpret these types of openings, the doubt they might have, and why you could lose out on a big scholarship. In this example, this intro paragraph is 138 words. This means you have just used a fifth of your allowed words to write about details that are not exactly relevant to your letter motivation or your application in general. The difficult childhood story focuses a lot on personal hardship, but you are delaying talking about the actual degree and about Erasmus Mundus more broadly. Point number two is believability. I can't remember what I ate for dinner 2 nights ago, or where I bought the shoes that I'm currently wearing, or the name of my English literature teacher in high school. I want you to reflect on this. How believable is it that an event that happened to you at 5 or 8 years old is now pushing you to apply to Erasmus Mundus? So much so that you opened your letter motivation describing that event. When I read a draft of a letter of motivation or personal statement that opens with an emotional summary or emotional details of a difficult childhood event, I find myself questioning how credible that experience explains someone's decision to apply to one of the most competitive scholarships like Erasmus Mundus. This person could apply to a master's degree without mobility, or just not apply at all and find a job, or apply for a master's degree at their local university. From the selection committee's perspective, and you always need to keep that in mind, how does the childhood story actually add value to your present and current motivation, plus your long term goals? It's fine to allocate some lines or space to speak on these earlier motivations or interests that often can't be found on your CV, but that can't be the only thing carrying your application. This brings me to point number 3. The typical structure I see is an opening paragraph or two with the childhood story, and then a paragraph or two on the applicant's undergraduate degree, including their coursework, and then maybe they write a few paragraphs about why they want to participate in this certain Erasmus Mundus degree. That is the usual funnel. Where that can go wrong is that you haven't connected the dots. How can you jump from a childhood event like your mother's hospital visit to an undergraduate degree to now applying to Erasmus Mundus? From the reader's point of view, it feels like the bridge between everything is missing. You have the dots, but you aren't connecting them. This is where the childhood story tends to fumble. And in no way am I saying to include your entire life story in your LOM. Please don't do that. Instead, I encourage you to be strategic. Is the childhood story that impactful and critical? Or could you use a more recent experience if you are going the route of the personal story or narrative? And this is a perfect segue to point number 4. This is not a creative writing submission. The letter motivation is not a single work of imaginative fiction. It is a document that is going to be reviewed by professors, by academics, and researchers. They are not judging on who has the saddest and most horrific circumstances and imagery. They are assessing if you have researched the specific tracks, if you understand Erasmus Mundus, if you have contributed to the field recently, and if not, how might you do that in the future? The letter of motivation is not a competition about who can include the most intense and heartbreaking childhood details. As harsh as this sounds, some evaluators might read the childhood story and think, okay, why should I care? And what does this have to do with me or our program? You need to articulate yourself as a candidate who wants to get admitted with a full scholarship. And number 5, you don't need to open with a sob story or tough childhood experience to secure a fully funded scholarship. Many people have received the full scholarship without disclosing personal details. They replace tragic stories with intellectual motivation and insights. If you are including or even faking a sob story to try to gain sympathy or empathy points, it's not going to help much. Emotional stories of real lived experiences can be helpful if there is a direct link between them and your motivation to participate in Erasmus Mundus. This is why I would advise that more recent projects or lived experiences would be more suitable in an application than ones from childhood. You want to show fit, not only interest. These are two distinct things. For example, I like yoga. Should I become a yoga teacher? No. Do I want to be a yoga teacher? No. Am I equipped for yoga teacher training and to lead classes? Absolutely not. Thinking of the intro paragraph I presented earlier, okay, this person's family went to the hospital and faced access issues. Many people have experienced this, unfortunately. People who have overcome these situations are definitely very resilient, but they don't all want to join the Euro Pub Health program and work in public health. Plus, not all people who experience these difficult childhood situations would be good public health professionals, and that is totally fine. Ultimately, your letter motivation needs to answer the selection committee's question, which is, does this applicant have the qualities to succeed in our program and to be an asset to our field? This is why opening with the sad childhood story often misses the mark in admissions. Given what I just shared, if you previously started your letter of motivation with a childhood story, and this could be good or bad, and you received a rejection letter, I want you to reflect on how you might adjust your letter of motivation in the future. This stands for any other EMJM program in any other field. Maybe you experienced a hurricane at 6 years old and had to flee your home suddenly. And now you are applying to the Erasmus Mundus Masters in Artificial Intelligence for Sustainable Societies. If you are going to start with your letter motivation with your hurricane story, the evaluator might be thinking, does this person actually care about our program? They could pursue other avenues like humanitarian assistance, emergency management, law, or even politics or entrepreneurship. A compelling story is not the same as a compelling application. The sob story might feel powerful, but on its own, it doesn't demonstrate fit, clarity, or readiness for a program like Erasmus Mundus or Europub Health. What actually sets strong applicants apart is their ability to show insight, connect their experience to the specific program, and make a clear and strategic case for why they belong there. Most applicants don't fail because they're not qualified. They fail because they present themselves in the same way as everyone else. Now that you know what not to do, subscribe to be notified of my upcoming video covering the 5 ways to structure the letter of motivation. Plus, I'll be breaking down real examples as well as talking about mistakes that I see on the LOM. There are a lot, unfortunately. I'm also going to share about CV red flags and what selection committees are looking for.